this campaign win or lose? Life is long, but it goes fast. The kids will have to separate their future from our past. Hello, I love you. Is there anybody in there that goes to walking by my side? I feel their love, I feel their pride, for I have built a bridge or two, bridges between me and you. Hello, I love you. Have you heard it was on the news? You can make your peace on the dark side of the moon. I'll see you there. We can rock and roll. We can make our choice. We can say goodbye or say hello. Hello, I love you. Is there anybody in there? Hello, 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 hello. Is there anybody in there?
Welcome to the Missouri Freedom Initiative. It's Saturday night. It's January 11th. It's 2025. Look at that national debt, gang. $36,339,000,000,000. And if we're going to buy Greenland, and buy Canada or something like that, or buy the Panama Canal, it's going to go up just a tad more, I think. Just a tick or two. But gosh darn it, it's just a few $1 trillion lost in the sands of time, I always say. But thank you for joining us tonight. We have got the gang with us. I'm going to bring up the volume on the gang here. And now that we got the debt out of the way, by the way, the debt per taxpayer is only $323,000 per person. Not bad. Okay. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you to everyone for joining us. Incidentally, the email went out this morning, but again, everyone on Yahoo did not get the email. So remember, our emails are posted on our website as well, guys. I don't have time to do battle with Yahoo, AOL, Outlook, Microsoft, and everyone else where people join our mail list only to complain that they're getting spam. And so that's what we're dealing with here. And I literally don't have time to deal with that. So please just remember, Every single email that I send out is put out on the website. So you can actually go right to the blog spot on the website and read the emails that I put out. Generally, 1, 2 a week, 3 a week if it's hot and heavy legislative period, but that's rare. So always remember, you can read our emails on the website because, like I said, I don't have time to do battle with these big corporations right now. Want to say thank you to Doug and Maya for joining us. We also have with us Shane Gordon. We have, let's see, Thomas Strike is with us. He's the webmaster for the Missouri Freedom Initiative. We also have Liberty Revolutionary with us, also known as Caleb. And Cindy Stratton is with us tonight. So hello to everyone, but our special presentation tonight is done by Isaac. And I want to go ahead and turn it over to him. We'll talk about Knock and Shock and everything else later on tonight, but he's got a big presentation. So, Isaac, take it away, buddy.
All right. Thanks, Pat. Can you hear me?
I sure can.
All right. Just want to thank you for allowing me to come back on tonight. I'm hoping I can make sense of all of this just to let everybody know. It's one of these topics. If anybody remembers the presentations I did last year, it's one of these issues that's so big and multifaceted, it's really hard to really hammer down it because you have to chase so many different angles. So tonight, I really want to give answers to really 4 things. What bills need to be shut down? Who benefits from these bills that needs to be shut down? What's the grand narrative and what's going on behind of why are these bills there? And really, why does all of this matter?
And why do they keep reoccurring?
And why do they keep reoccurring?
Because they don't get passed, because people like you
exactly.
shut them down, Isaac. So go ahead.
Yeah. So just to let everybody know, all of the water bills are back in this year. So I'm not going to, retread those. I can get you numbers later, Pat. I forgot to do that beforehand. But there's also a few others. And the first one I have here already pulled up. It's HB 761. So to let you know that to give you a basis of where I'm going to be going with this, Missouri is home to a vast amount of rare earth metals, and all of these rare earth minerals and metals are needed for everything planned for the Agenda 2030, the green revolution, all this green tech stuff that they keep talking about. Missouri is home to tons of lead, copper, nickel, cobalt, thorium, some uranium, gold in small amounts. We're a very mineral rich area. So there's a big agenda that I've been noticing develop, and it's taken me, gosh, Pat, what is it, over a year now?
Yeah, over a year.
Researching and looking into this, and it's become kind of an obsession with me. So to say that, I'll also start with this. I understand a lot of I'm not against green technology. I'm nothing against solar panels or windmills, as long as they're done, safe and effective and there's no economic harm or ecological harm. I'm all for it. I have no objection to it. I do have a problem whenever they start combining all this green agenda in with communism, which takes away our rights. I think a lot of this green energy stuff is actually more damaging for the environment than what we have currently. And that's where I'm really concerned, especially seeing some of these bills. So the first one I want to talk about is HB 761, and I have it pulled up here on the screen. And this one is from Lewis Riggs. I believe he's the representative up around Hannibal in the northeast corner of Missouri. And I'll read it real quick. It's short. It says, notwithstanding any provision of the law to the contrary, when preparing statewide transportation improvement program, the Department of Transportation shall prioritize the high priority corridors identified in Section 1105C of the Intermodal Surface Transportation Efficiency Act of 1991, publication L102-204. Well, if anybody remembers when I covered the Trans-American Corridor last year and the agenda for making Missouri the head of the new North American super grid. I have that, right here where they're talking water pipelines, high-speed freight rails, all sorts of major projects that are, seem good but quite nefarious when you begin to look into them. All those stem from this high priority corridors list mentioned. So this Transportation Efficiency Act of 1991, those numbers, those are the very same list that are on the federal government's, Federal Highway Administration's website, in the same subsection list, which mentioned the Trans-American Corridor. So what Representative Lewis Riggs wants to do is prioritize this above any other state infrastructure problem or
Project.
Yeah, thank you. In the entire state. Two of the others are the north-south corridor from Kansas City, Missouri to Shreveport. One of the things that's interesting about that route is there's not a good interstate route between those two cities. You have to go through either Little Rock, Arkansas, and up and around or over to Oklahoma City. What's interesting is what's being mined by ExxonMobil right now in southern Arkansas is actually massive amounts of lithium that's being done in conjunction with ExxonMobil. So lithium will come up really important later on. So just to note that. So that's the number one priority for the federal government. The number two one was the Avenue of the Saints corridor from St. Louis to St. Paul. That connects Missouri, St. Louis, Kansas City to inland ports up around Duluth, up into Canada, where other rare earth metals are found, which are going to be needed for stuff that's going on in Missouri. So why would Representative Lewis Riggs have something which prioritizes federal programs over state needs? Very short, very simple, and that's exactly what it does. So that's just one of them. So to let everybody know, the water pipelines, the federal agendas for this, they're all on the table. Second one is Senate Bill 275, and this is done by Nick Schroer. And this is called the Missouri Nuclear Remediation Act. And to give you a basic summary of it, what it's designed is to give tax credits up into 50% of the total operations for cleaning up EPA Superfund sites. A lot of these Superfund sites and things where they need cleanup are found in old mines that are existing. Well, these mines that have all these tailings left over that need cleaned up are where a lot of the cobalt, nickel, and thorium are going to be coming out of the ground for these projects. So they already have infrastructure in place. They're just asking for a 50% tax credit to be able to fund themselves because, they need government money to pad their pockets. Thank you, Nick Schroer, for giving people like John Deal a 50% tax credit to run their businesses. There's two others here. I have Justin Brown has SB 537, and that establishes the Missouri Defense and Energy Independence Act. And this act authorizes a tax credit not to exceed $6 million for qualified conversion costs incurred by a company that produces chemicals, metals, gases, or rare earth minerals that will be used for projects designed to decrease or eliminate reliance on foreign-produced materials. Justin Brown also has another one that will give a 50% of the amount of tuition tax reimbursement for certain engineering degrees for people that have an engineering degree that want to go work for a qualified company in the engineering sector. This is interesting because of some things going on in Missouri S&T, of which Justin Brown is the state senator for Rolla, where Missouri S&T is at, which has been selected by the federal government to be one of the primary hubs of the new green energy technology scaling facilities. I'll touch more on that here in just a second. So back here on this Nuclear Remediation Act and cleaning up of qualified sites for EPA Superfunds. Anybody remembers John Deal in there knows that he owns a cobalt mine, or is part owner in it, or on the board and registered agent for the cobalt mine. That's connected to the World Economic Forum. They also have another company owned by the exact same people called Environmental Risk Transfer. So to give you a basic idea, Waterfield, Legacy of Trust, J. Rand Waterfield, he's a World Economic Forum member. What they do at Environmental Risk Transfer is they specialize in absolving mining operations from any environmental risk that may happen by assuming that risk and then taking responsibility for it. Then they go in and do the cleanup for the ecological disasters that happen as a result of it. So I find it interesting that the people that would be doing the mining that could, in the process of trying to extract these minerals, create a ecological disaster, that then they also own the company that could come in and absolve them of that liability. And then if, Nick Schroer's bill gets through, they get to have a 50% tax credit to clean up the disaster that they already created and be absolved from any liability from any damages done. If you go and you look at the case studies of one of these, one of them mentioned in here was the Missouri City Power Plant. If that was the project up in Kansas City that John Deal had the FBI investigate him for, because whenever they made the bid to tear down this power plant, their bid was twice as high as the next company, and they got the bid even though we were twice the expense. And the FBI got involved, and there was a lot of debate and all this thing, and John Deal came out smelling like a rose because apparently the FBI couldn't find anything on him, just like they investigate Dean Plocker and don't find anything. That was that event. So one of these case studies they have, there's already been massive amounts of scandal based around for some of these actions. Now they want a 50% tax credit of what they say it's going to cost to pad their pockets to do the cleanup. So that's just a nice, interesting thing, because he's going to come up here in a little bit. So there's a few different companies that I want to mention. One is, I've already mentioned, the U.S. Strategic Metals, which is the cobalt mine, which is partnered with John Deal. The Environmental Risk Transfer, the same thing, mentioned those two. Pea Ridge Mine, which is owned by Caldera Holdings. I'll be covering them here. Critical Mineral Recovery, and Missouri S&T. Well, Missouri S&T back in April of this year, this is a slideshow that they had where they began to explain what S&T is beginning to do in advanced energy research. And a lot of it lays out, the needs for establishing a domestic rare earth mineral supply, which I agree with. That's a good thing to do, seeing China owns a mass quantity of it. If you start looking at the consortium members of who all's behind this, Missouri's S&T. Oh, we have John Deal, U.S. Strategic Metals. That's the cobalt mine. Interesting. Also, Environmental Risk Transfer. Let's absolve ourselves from any ecological damage that would happen as a result and bill the taxpayers for the cleanup of what we caused. You have Doe Run Mine. They're the people that own the lead mines over by Viburnum. They do a lot of copper, silver, and a couple other minerals through there as well. The people that own that, if I remember correctly, he's a major military contractor, and I believe he also has the Humvee contract for the U.S. military, and the brother of the guy that owns that mine is a munitions maker for the U.S. Army, owns the munitions plant in Martin, Tennessee. So they're involved in this thing. So big military, big federal contractors. Caldera Holdings, which is the Pea Ridge Mine, which I'll cover more here in a little bit. Critical Minerals Recovery, Interco. If people remember back in October, it made some headlines that there was a lithium battery recycling plant that caught fire over by Fredericktown. And it was massive amounts of toxic smoke that came across there. They had to evacuate some people from around it. That's them. A lot of suspicion around that. Apparently, I've talked to some people who have family in the area where that's at, and like roads are blocked off. No one's saying anything about it. There's been fish die-offs in that area because of the disaster that happened because of that. So they're involved in this. You also have another company called Syensco, or however that's pronounced. That is the World Economic Forum branch that specializes in chemical processing and chemicals. So another World Economic Forum member. Go down a little further in here. You have the Missouri Association of Councils of Government. They're the ones that specialize in regional planning for the state as far as big projects go. And as far as Missouri Chamber of Commerce, Economic Development, Natural Resources. So there's a lot of people in these businesses, to tie back to the engineering degree tax credit to wipe out 50% of your student loans. I have a feeling that the qualified employers for engineering degrees are going to be on this list. I think that could be a good reason for that, Bill. So here's another map here, and this is a map that everybody needs to really focus on. So as I mentioned, Missouri has a wealth of rare earth minerals. Most of the rare earths can be found here. There's only a couple that can't. These 14 counties that are listed, Phelps, Dent, Reynolds, Shannon, Texas, Iron counties, St. Genevieve, this is the area where everything is really focused on. In this area, you also have a massive amount of federal parkland. The Mark Twain National Forest is there. It's one of the least populated areas and also one of the most impoverished areas in the state. All these rare earth metals are found in this section right here. I will point out this area right here. I'm trying to remember, is it St. Genevieve County right here on the edge? Right here. I could be wrong. But there's major riverport developments being done there as well. And it seemed like riverports were a big deal here a couple sessions ago, if I'm not mistaken.
They were.
Do you know who just happens to own one of the riverport developments operations going on in this county, right in that area?
John Deal?
It just happens. I think he's one of the other guys from Caldera Holdings who has the Pea Ridge mine. So we're beginning to see some, the plans for this go back years, and it's a multi-year thing we have to think about. What do all these little bits connect to? So these counties right here, and I really want to touch on Shannon County and some things going on here later. We're going to take a little detour because what's going on in this county right here, Shannon County, should scare the crap out of everybody in Missouri. But I'll touch on that here in a second. Just to give you a list of people who were advocates for it, Governor Parsons, the man who's bought and paid for by China.
Yeah.
Senator Eric Schmidt, the man who got his launch into federal politics by taking a lot of money from Rex Sinquefield. Jason Smith, everybody knows he's bought and paid for by the World Economic Forum and all these mining industries, predominantly John Deal's business partners. So you have some major World Economic Forum people there that are really benefiting from all of this. Patrick, if you want to put I think it was the first link in the chat.
Yep.
We're going to take a quick detour because of what's going on in Shannon County, that county I showed you. I have it pulled up here on mine, but did anybody know that there was a House Transportation and Oversight Committee meeting last month, December 4th in Eminence, Missouri? Was anybody aware of that?
I did not know.
Yeah, most people didn't know. And what good would a House committee meeting to be held for the public that lasted almost 4 hours long of person after person making complaints against the federal government? What's that committee hearing actually going to do, seeing half the people are gone? The committee looks different than it did last year, and there's a new Congress coming in a month. It really does nothing. So why mess with it? Because there's enough people in Shannon County, and if that are livid at what the federal government is doing down there. Shannon County, as I said, is one of those people in that critical mineral area. So Pat dropped the link in there. I encourage everybody just listen, even if it's nothing but an hour or two. But what you're going to find at this committee hearing is person after person giving some of the most egregious law enforcement violations that you've ever heard of. It's gotten so bad that even former Missouri Rep Robert Ross came and testified at the very end against the federal government and the Park Service, what they're doing. To let you know, it's gotten the person here on the end, I believe that is her. That is Chris Dinkins. She was one of the top recipients of Plocker PAC money. Right up here is Ron Copeland. He no longer is in office. He was replaced. He decided not to run again, and he was tied for second place as a recipient of Plocker PAC money.
Is that O'Donnell sitting next to him to his right?
I cannot tell. It might be.
I think that's O'Donnell. He just, incidentally, I'm just going to throw something out there. He resigned, even though he was reelected, and he is going to join the Secretary of State's office for Security and Exchange or something like that. So he is he will no longer be a representative. I believe his last day is Wednesday, the 15th.
So that's Missouri Secretary of State, or?
Yeah, Missouri Secretary of State,
okay.
which of course, is, oh, dear God, names. Denny Hoskins.
Yeah.
He is now, and so he brought O'Donnell into his office, vacating his seat and also the committee chair he had on banking and infrastructure.
And he's the guy that held up gold and silver so bad last year,
Yes, he did. He held it up for 11 weeks in his committee. He basically just about totally killed gold and silver single-handedly.
Yeah, interesting. So another lizard, stick in the lineup here. So to give you an idea, the people on this committee here have heavy ties to Plocker. Plocker has
heavy business
connect
to
John Deal and all this mining operations. Another person you'll hear referenced a lot in this thing is U.S. Representative Jason Smith, because he's the representative for that district. He's bought by the same people that all these people are going and complaining to the very people that are helping benefit the people that are destroying their lives. And none of them were any of the wiser, because they had so many violations. Now, to give you an idea of what's going on, is the federal park rangers are going off of the federal parks and onto state and county highways, and they are actually giving traffic tickets to people, saying, oh, you had a headlight out, your blinkers out. And then but their lights or blinkers aren't out. They issue a ticket. The tickets then come to them. They give it an option to plead guilty or wait for a court subpoena. Well, they'll get a subpoena. Because it's a federal charge on a traffic ticket, they have to go to federal court to make their case against these traffic tickets. The only problem is they get a subpoena, but there's no court date given to them. And there are dozens of accounts of these people having all these stacks of tickets. They'll even go to the federal courthouses saying, can I get a court date? And they say no. So there's a subpoena out for whatever violation they had, and they're never given a chance to represent themselves in court. One of the people that testifies in this was even the county commissioner. He was arrested by a park ranger for allegedly being drunk on a campground, which he passed the in-the-field breathalyzer test, but they still had to take him an hour away to the main federal park office to pass another one. And then they said, well, you're free to go. Well, what do I do? My vehicle's an hour away. They say, that's your problem. They're arresting people without warrants and locking them up. There's one guy in here that has been arrested without a cause, without being given charges, was locked up for several days, and then released without charges. But then he has civil suits against some of these officers. Shannon County itself is actually in a lawsuit with the federal government because the federal parks are going through here and shutting down county roads. They are blocking off and putting boulders in front of roads, saying, even though this road belongs to the county, and it's county maintained and people travel on this road, the federal government's saying, no, you can't. So Shannon County sued them. Well, the federal government countersued Shannon County and tied them up in court. And one of the commissioners are like, look, we have this lawsuit, but we have $1 million budget and we're 300,000 down in legal fees, and we can't fight it anymore because we don't have the money. So the federal government's actually using lawfare against the county itself. They're putting cameras up in front of people's driveways to know who people whose property butts up against the Federal Park Service and the National Forest. They're putting video cameras pointed into their driveway to know when they leave so they can go stop them for an arrest. And they're taking guns, they're running gun numbers, they're doing everything they can to harass people. And people are saying, look, I've lived here my whole life and I'm about to be driven out because I can't stand to live here anymore. To give you some background on Shannon County, 51% of the county is either owned by the federal government or something called the Ladd Foundation. Ladd Foundation was, if anybody knows Leo Dry, he was the largest landowner in Missouri. He owned about a third of Shannon County and really helped restore the environment there after it was clear cut from logging back in the 50s and 60s. He started acquiring land, and he has an agreement worked out with the conservation department where he allows his land to be used for any state purpose that any public person could want to go on there and do. So they have some big troubles back and forth with the Federal Park Service because of what's going on in there. Because it's such a poor county, because it's 51% controlled by the federal government and one trust fund that holds land, it makes it really easy to prey upon people. And that's what's going on, because you have all these people, one after the other coming up, and it's just horrible what's happening. And the federal court system is permitting this to be done by these park rangers, and the head park rangers are complicit in it because they mentioned several times, look, we have gone up here, the law enforcement's being harassed by these people. So there's an active campaign by the federal government to actually destroy the lives of these people in that county. So why is so much not being done? Why was so much attention brought, and why was there so much of this House Committee Transportation Oversight Committee meeting to try to get people to blow off some steam? Is because it's really coming to a head.
Why'd they hold such an important meeting in a town of 523 people in a county of 7,238 people?
Exactly.
Thank you very much, Ozarks Freedom Gal, for the information.
Yeah. And if you look here, right smack dab in the middle of all these rare earth metals, that's Shannon County. And I believe that has something to do with it. So whenever I look at the people that are in this committee hearing, and so many of them are bought and paid for by Dean Plocker and John Deal by proxy, so many people are being paid off by the same people who are benefiting from these mining activities, and they're driving people off of their property. So I just wanted to bring that up. It's tangential, but it's definitely worth people to go look at, because one of the things that is brought up in this committee hearing toward the end is that if they're going to do this to Shannon County, because it's the easiest county in those 14 counties to pick on, because of it being, it's the second largest county by landmass in the state, and it's 51% owned by two people, the federal government and a Ladd Foundation. And it is so impoverished that nobody has the money to fight these things. So a lot of people are pleading guilty to stuff. They're targeting businesses. They're targeting I need to just move on from that one. So these mining things are really beginning to come to a head here. I want to go back here and revisit Caldera Holdings, because that is the Pea Ridge mine over in Sullivan. And I found an interesting document here from, was it 1989, about the Pea Ridge mine in Washington County, Missouri. And it contains gold and a ton of rare earth metals. And it's one of these things right here. But it talks about all of the different minerals that are referenced in it. all of these are really critical for um, all this green tech they're building in this state. If somebody wants to, if anybody's suffering from insomnia, I recommend they read this because they'll probably fall asleep. It's quite boring, but you can see all of the rare earth metals. Um, I can't remember if I was telling you this before, but this mine, or if I said it on the show, but this mine, the guy that owns it, James Kennedy, um, if you can put his link, Patrick, in the chat.
Okay, the second link.
Yeah, James Kennedy, he is a guy that actually spoke at this consortium. And to give you a background on him, back in 2011, he tried to illegally sell this mine to a group of oligarchs in Kazakhstan that specialize in minerals. And he was found in violation of some things and didn't quite get away with it because he was trying to offload it. So he has some very shady business dealings in and of it itself because of his illegally trying to sell this. In that video I just sent you, that's his presentation at Missouri S&T, talking about how the need for rare earth mineral development in the United States, we have a definite need for it. I agree with that. I'm all on board with that. China has about 95% of the rare earth market and processing, and we really need to have that for national security. I'm all on board with that. But if you get into his presentation, one of the things he mentions is we can't do it because China subsidizes all of their mining operations for that, and we can't compete because we don't have enough government money coming to us to fund our operations. So his argument is China can beat everybody in the world and hold, if there's one trump card China holds, it's rare earth metals and mineral processing. But his solution says we need government welfare to step in because the communist Chinese do it. We need to act like the communist Chinese and have communism and massive government funding for us billionaires who already have money to run our operations for us. That was his solution. We need more government money to drive everything down. Well, what did we just see here by all these other bills? Nick Schroer wants to give a 50% tax credit to these corporations who are cleaning up all these minerals that are found in these tailings. And one of them in particular was thorium mentioned, which was the primary mineral that is going to be extracted from there. The other one that Justin Brown had is $6 million tax credit for these people. So he's getting these tax credits they asked for if these things get through because he needs government welfare to run this because we have to have the same setup as China in order to compete with China. So the solution they're trying to bring out is the problem with America is we're not enough like the Communist Chinese Party. So that's inside of his presentation. If you just listen to it. Where was I at here? So that's kind of a basic thing. So why am I making a big deal about all these rare earth metals? And a lot of it is because if you start looking at Kansas City and a lot of the big tech corporations that are relocating all of their data centers and all their new data processing facilities and all these big tech industries, they are flocking to Missouri and Kansas right and left, heavily focused on Kansas City. What Missouri S&T is developing, and I don't know if anybody is familiar with small modular reactors or thorium salt-based reactors. And this is a technology that's really being developed at S&T. NuScale is one of them. Bill Gates has his own nuclear power plant, or small modular reactor thing he's invested billions in. This is, Bill Gates has been pouring billions into nuclear power, and it's these small modular reactors. And 3 companies back in November, Microsoft, Alphabet, which is Google, and Amazon, have all signed nuclear energy deals for these small modular reactors. because they need this really cheap energy to power their AI applications like ChatGPT. Well, to give you a basic concept of what these modular reactors that are thorium salt based, there's a company out there that has a lot of YouTube information, a lot of presentations called Copenhagen Atomics, and I encourage people to go and look at them because they have probably the best social media presence of any of these companies that are building these. Essentially, one of these modular reactors can fit in a 40-foot shipping container, have a production cost of around $100 to $150,000, and can produce about 50 gigawatts of electricity for a period of about 50 years. That means you could have a shipping container that costs $150,000 power an average sized town, small town in the United States, for $150,000 for 50 years. When you look at what would that do to the cost of energy? That means you would have about $1 a year in energy costs of what it would cost averaged out, is what they're claiming. I am all for this technology. But when you look at the communism that's coming along with these people that are running it and all these agendas, it's the people that are pushing these technologies that I have a problem with, because it's a good technology. It's like the internet. It's a wonderful thing, but it's also a horrible thing. It depends on who's using it. That which has been used to spread the gospel to far reaches of the world that are closed off is being used to exploit children on the other end.
Mm-hmm.
The technology, I'm all for. It's how this technology is being implemented in our state predominantly, because we have all the minerals and the scaling facilities to build this stuff. So it's these companies that are going to be benefiting if they can take the water and mineral rights from us. Because I think one of the reasons water pipelines are so important is because if you can destroy the water rights, mineral rights are directly attached to it. Why does, I believe it's Dane Deal this year is carrying the water bill that says any corporation that pipes water out of Missouri, the information cannot be disclosed to the public, even with a sunshine request. So there's no way you can find out who's actually doing that. Well, why would you not want that to be known? Because you're violating the property rights of these people. Because we have, on top of all of this, all these minerals sets the world's one of the largest freshwater aquifers that's still untainted and unpolluted. Well, if they start extracting these minerals in here, you're also going to worry about the water table. That's a big issue. So if they make it to where these, this bill 782, it talks about water cleanup as well as a result of some of these problems. If they start dumping all these chemicals into our water table, which is right smack dab on top of all these minerals, what's going to happen?
Well, to frame things a little bit better, Isaac, I think it's really important to point out, because it's been maybe 6 to 8 months since we talked about this. The water table that you're talking about, that's in southeast Missouri, is simply the largest underground aquifer of potable water in the United States of America, and we share that with Arkansas. It's underneath Missouri and Arkansas. Yeah. It's extremely valuable because this is water that is untainted. There's very few minerals in this water. There's no contaminants. So in other words, it's not water that has arsenic in it. It's not water that's got lead in it, and it's not water that's got pesticides in it.
Exactly.
So that's the kind, and it's the largest underground lake of potable water in the United States. Very valuable.
Yeah, I live in the area around the current, and whenever you float the current, there's places, if you're out of water, you can find a spring pouring out of a rock somewhere that you can drink it and be safe, because it's exactly that. There's artesian springs everywhere around here, and but that's what's at stake, is the environment. Well, isn't it
that, and you have to throw in there too the fact that the way they're trying to do this creates more of the favorited individual and corporation and government monopoly over the general public.
Exactly. Yeah, because the very people that could cause these ecological disasters to the water table get paid by us to clean them up, and they reap a benefit by destroying the environment.
Hmm.
That's
And
what these bills do.
then the government that that is trying to help them do this stuff, as soon as as soon as they don't like you, saying something they don't like, then well, I guess you don't get power anymore. I guess you don't get. It's more of the centralization of control.
Yeah, exactly. And well, here's one of the other things to think about as well. Uh, one of the all the if you look at Kansas City and what's coming up there, the new Giga factory for Panasonic, which is producing all these EV batteries, I think it was something like 6 per minute will be rolling off the line. I think just on the Kansas side of southwest of Kansas City, just across the border, they need all these minerals to build these things with.
Yeah,
That ties
cobalt,
back
lithium. Yeah.
cobalt, lithium. That ties back to these high priority corridors. That ties back to all these things. Well, whose cars use a lot of these Panasonic batteries? It just happens to be Elon Musk. Who's the number one consumer of rare earth metals in this country? It's the
Elon Musk.
military industrial, yeah, military industrial complex. He does how much for he's a military contractor for the
Mhm.
Defense Department. So, who just happens to be in charge of deregulating um, our country right now? It just happens to be, well, it will be whenever Trump gets in office, it'll be Elon Musk.
Yep.
Well, if anybody remembers the interview that Trump did with Joe Rogan, there were two things he mentioned was we need to deregulate uh, water usage for corporations. And yeah, there are some legitimate reasons why, the speckled frog in the river that we can't pipe out with. But if you start looking at the water rights, if you start violating one water right, it puts all others at risk. The other thing he started mentioning in that interview connected to that was small nuclear reactors, which they're beginning to develop here. So, and a lot of it comes down to, yeah, are these nuclear reactors safe? If they're safe as they say they are, it sounds better than the big uranium reactors that we have now. But at the same time, what could happen? And could you have a nuclear fallout zone around a town potentially? I mean, I don't know. I'm not a nuclear scientist. So,
I'm going to toss in there and just say that with the uranium reactors, the ones that are built now, the modern ones, and how
mhm,
the current ones have been renovated, um, they are almost completely incapable of going prompt critical. They have to have additional things in there
yeah,
to make them have a level of criticality to produce the heat. Bigger threat is the fuel pools, but they put those in dry cask on site after they've cooled off for a period of 10 years. And as for the liquid thorium,
mhm,
those ones, or I guess say thorium salt. It's a salt that it goes to criticality, but not prompt criticality. There's a difference there. Prompt criticality is uncontrolled neutron release causing cascading effect. Criticality is just a consistent reaction. They have the capability to go to criticality, but the moment that there's an overheat issue, there's buffers that are designed to
mhm.
melt above that temperature, and then it splits the vat, so it removes it from having critical mass.
Yeah. Which, if that's good, that's good. But still, whenever you start talking about they're wanting to do this whole big deregulation thing,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's
you're.
what concerns me.
Oh yeah, you're. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm not saying.
Yeah.
I'm not. Yeah. No. It would be good to see some molten. Molten. Thorium salt reactors. But once you cross the threshold of, okay, we're no longer just building some thorium salt reactors to try to
Mhm.
benefit, because they will end up profiting off of that anyway once it's all said and done, particularly if it's that cheap. If it's $1 a year, charge $2 a year.
Yeah.
The reality check is that they'll end up destroying everything. You start getting to the point where they have no care, because uh, there's no liability for if they
Yeah.
mess up. And then you throw in there too that, I mean, there's other agendas they have behind this and why they're monopolizing it so tight. Under any other circumstance, you wouldn't have to monopolize it this much.
Yeah. Exactly. So, you know, yeah, whenever they start talking deregulation, the regulations they're going to be cutting are not regulations like a small business owner that has an e-commerce store has to be compliant with 14,000 different sales tax districts across the country and be liable for that. That's not the type of regulation they're going to start cutting. It's going to be, we can cut off this safety standard. We can bypass this test here to speed this technology up, because whoever can control this technology will truly rule the world for the next 100 years. And
Yeah.
when you start looking at, why are we so big on gold and silver? It's because the US dollar is collapsing. Well, what's the US dollar based off of? It's based off of oil. Well, if oil's on its way out and fossil fuels are on their way out, something's going to have to replace that.
You know what's what's funny is the one thing that drives Bitcoin,
It's energy.
and you know what the one thing is, it's been talked about and a suggestion to try to deal with the dollar.
Is make a CBDC. Yes.
Well, they tried use no, they're specifically Bitcoin.
Bitcoin. Yeah. Oh, that's RFK Jr. is big on that, and so is Trump. They're wanting to back the US dollar with Bitcoin, but that requires an energy source that's not fossil fuel based because it's too expensive.
I think some of these people that are talking heads towards this don't quite know what they're getting themselves into.
Yeah.
And then you have the people in the background that are just doing, oh, this is so innocent, and working them in that direction.
Well, let's actually backtrack just a little bit. Let's focus on something you said nearly at the beginning of your presentation, Isaac.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, we can have all these thorium reactors. We can have this cheap energy, but unfortunately, we have to have communism with it. Can you expand on that?
So James Kennedy, the guy that owns the thorium mine, he's saying that, okay, so right now China owns over something like 95% of the rare earth metals processing facilities in the world. There's not much that outside of China. And if you look at China as their economy over the past decade has been collapsing. They have a population crisis that is hitting them hard.
Demographic problem, yeah.
They don't grow their own. Yeah, they have no food.
Yep.
And since 2020, in my day job, I work in vendor relations. And I was talking with a vendor who's we're trying to pull all of our products out of China that we can. And one of the vendors I work with has a deal with Walmart, and Walmart's told them we're trying to make everything 20% non-China by the end of next year. So Walmart's beginning to pull out of China. But what's the one trump card that China has? It's rare earth metals, because without them, you don't have smartphones, you don't have computers, you don't have laptops, you don't have any technology requires these metals. You can't build missiles for the US military to fight their endless wars without Chinese rare earth metals. So there is a definite need to have a domestic base of these metals. But what China has done has subsidized it so much by the government to the point where no one on the global stage can compete with them.
I see.
And if you want to, you can't drive your costs down cheap enough no matter what, because they have so much communist money pouring in to keep the price so cheap. That's what gives them the leg up on everybody else. Okay. So one of the things James Kennedy is saying is, like, we have to have the same type of thing here. We have to have all this government money pour into us in order for us to be able to develop this. So unless we actually get the government, the federal government, state governments to step up, pouring billions of dollars into us so we can compete at that price point, we can't function. But there's only a couple of these places in the entire North American continent, and it just happens to be owned by these same people calling for all these. James Kennedy, I think, bought this thing back in 2001 and has not produced a single dollar of revenue. He's held on to that thing for over 20 years. And I don't know what he does that he can own a mine for 20 years that doesn't produce cash, but he has to have some major money keeping him afloat. As I mentioned, in those 14 counties, those back in the 60s and 70s were when the federal government started buying up all that land in there. What just happens to be on all that land is all these rare earth metals that probably they knew back 40, 50 years ago that these were going to be important in the future. And the federal government setting on top of these minerals. So they started collecting all these things. So now they're trying to figure out, how do we bring this stuff online? Well, we have too many regulations in place because it's unbelievably toxic to mine this stuff. And the environmental hazard is high trying to pull these things out. And yeah, there are some hydrometallurgy things that S&T does, which, uses water to extract these minerals. And it is a lot safer because you can treat the water. And that's great. But whenever you start talking that the federal government we have to have a public-private partnership in order to make this financially possible. And if you look at all the people who are investing in this, they are the big tech oligarchs that are ruling our lives. They have an agenda not just to make money. They have an agenda to wield power. And that's going to come at the expense of our property rights. That's going to come at the expense of our lives, our children. Because frankly, I don't want to work for one of these tech billionaires. I don't. I kind of want to be off on my own. Yep. Not worrying about, what they think. I don't want their social credit scores. Because when you start looking at the list there, oh yeah, Bill Gates is going to be great in pushing freedom. He's tied into this. He is all about the Constitution.
Oh yeah,
maybe
that's right.
maybe the regulation they want to cut's the Constitution, because that's a regulation of the government against they saying they can't come into my life.
He's been a crook since he was a teenager.
Yeah.
Yep.
So look at these. I mean, the people that own these mines are your tech billionaires that are bought and paid for by World Economic Forum flunkies. That's who it is. So these are the people that are going to be running these minerals, because I guarantee you they're not going to give it up. And they're going to get what they ask for unless we, say, hey, no, you have enough billions, raise your own billions. There are other ways to combat China. Maybe stick a massive tariff on them, or tariff countries that buy critical minerals from China. And that could possibly drive the price up. It could be done, but that's not the solution they're asking for. The solution they're asking for is public-private partnerships.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, as you pointed out in the legislation, it's not only that, but basically, if there's any disasters, let's say catastrophic, leakage, basically into the soil, into the water, that the taxpayers of Missouri will be responsible for paying for that cleanup.
Yes. To the company or the sister company owned by the people that caused the problem. 50% of the cleanup costs will go straight to the people that caused the problem.
Do you know the FDA created one of the biggest waterway disasters, pollutions on a scale that most people don't know about, and that was arsenic into a river in Colorado?
Doesn't surprise me.
And they created that problem. And so at any rate, the federal government, of course, had to clean up their mess. The federal government created the problem and used the taxpayers' money to clean up that ecological disaster they created in Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And it was expensive. It was I can't remember how many liquid tons of arsenic that they had blocked off in a cave that got out of the cave and went right into the waterway. But it was huge. It was very big, and it was a blip on the radar for the news. What Isaac is talking about here concerns me for a lot of reasons. First of all, we got bills to shut down now, gang, so don't worry about that. We got bills to shut down, and that's part of what we do. But one of the things that really concerns me about this is literally how John Deal and other Missourians, billionaire Missourians, literally just have the entire political system wrapped around their fingers. But it always seems to be the same people. I mean, Dean Plocker was certainly a player for John Deal. And John Deal used to be the Speaker of the House some 20 years ago, 20 years ago. So he's a former speaker and, billionaire, and is now, essentially holding, basically, I would say, the General Assembly hostage with some of this legislation. Has anyone looked into any of the PACs that John Deal distributes money from? to figure out who John is paying in the General Assembly for this kind of nonsense? Isaac, Caleb?
Yeah, I'm not an expert on PAC money too much.
Okay. We're going to
So-
have to talk to Rogue Politics. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Caleb.
Oh, I was gonna say. Oh, I was just saying. Yeah, I don't know either. I will
Okay.
say though, you know why this stuff is so toxic, and the reason why it gets into the water the way it does.
Why is that?
It's because the fact that how they when they mine this stuff, when they strip mine,
Mhm.
most of these are the rare earth metals. A lot of them are alkali metals or light, and they're also mixed with a bunch of lighter weight metals.
Hmm.
So alkali metals tend to dissolve in water. They'll break down and they'll create they'll create another substance with the water, like sodium, all these other alkali metals, particularly lithium in this case. Um, Throw in there too, a lot of these other metals aren't necessarily water soluble, but they can oxidize, and the oxidized forms become water soluble. Um, Reality is how they extract this, particularly some of them in the mineral form, has to be converted back from its oxidized state. So they have to effectively dissolve it, the rock in the water to pull it out, and then they treat the water to flock it out
Mhm.
from the water. And when they flock it out, it floats on the surface, and there's a screen that just pulls all these metals off the top. And of course, different stages of the chemical treatment, pulls more off. But it doesn't matter how much you do, you will still have this stuff left in the water that comes off of that.
Well, this is the problem with strip mining in China and the pollution in China. Their water tables are horribly polluted. The
Mhm.
government is doing what it can to, basically try and filter out this water. But the fact of the matter is, it's not healthy. It's very unhealthy. And you got a lot of crap going into the water in China. So strip mining in southeast Missouri would be tantamount to the same thing because you're going for the same metals. And as Caleb already explained, these are lightweight metals that will easily go through the soil, especially if you're using water to mine it. Right down to the water table, and then all of a sudden you got pollution in your potable, the largest potable water source. I wonder if Arkansas knows the dangerous games the Missouri legislature is playing with this potable underground aquifer that we share with Arkansas.
Yep,
Wonder if
all
there might
water
be
moves towards the equator.
That's correct, and you see that's the thing; it's going to hit them. So, at any rate, I wonder if Arkansas even knows about this. Or if, and by the way, Isaac's presentations are outstanding. But the thing is Isaac is just reporting on Missouri. We know for a fact this is going on in other states as well, particularly Nevada, Idaho. Gosh darn it.
California.
I don't
It
know if
stretches.
California. I don't think
My
it's.
under-
Go ahead.
I think it's at that far western northwestern corner where that mine is up there. So it has to stretch at least a little bit into California, at least when the water moves south after that.
Okay, that may be why they were going through
Are you
Nevada.
talking about the Thacker Pass project?
Not certain exactly what it's
Okay.
called. I can't remember. Off
Is
the
that
top
where
of my head, but
it's northern Nevada? There's up by the Black Rock Desert. There's about $1 trillion worth of lithium sitting on top of the
Mhm.
ground, but there's no
Yeah.
water to mine it.
Yep.
Yep.
Trying to figure out how to get water there to mine it. And it's also, from what I understand, it was the biggest lithium source they found in the United States until they found the source here, and then one in the southeast of the United States as well.
Yeah, they also have a really good one in North Carolina too.
Oh,
Um,
I wonder if
it's
it's Western North Carolina.
it is,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I was actually had heard about that over probably a year ago, and there was a book I was reading about rare earth metal mining in the United States, and yes, I am that big of a geek, everybody. So just bear with me. And it was talking about all this lithium down there, and all these corporations were lamenting because there's 100 and something thousand people sitting on top there they would have to displace. And I was reading about that like a year ago almost, maybe a little less than that, but it's been within the past year. well before this floods happened. So yeah, whenever they start talking about lithium deposits over there, there have been corporations lamenting the fact that there are people living above that for a long time because it is a massive deposit there. So, slap a tinfoil hat on me and call me a conspiracy theorist. I don't care.
Now, I
It's
don't know.
there.
There's been talk about, not only that, but also okay, we haven't talked about something you and I talked about earlier this week, Isaac,
Mhm.
and that's basically the 15-minute city plans in Southeast Missouri.
Oh gosh.
Can we
Yeah.
talk about that just a little bit, please?
I don't know if they're going to be inside of Missouri or not.
Okay.
But let me pull it up here. I don't have that prepared. Um, Trump here in March of 2003 called for futuristic freedom cities.
Mm-hmm.
So here is let me see if I can present this here. If
A 15-minute city by any other name would smell just as sweet,
yeah,
right?
I'll just read it. Donald Trump wants new freedom cities for quantum leap in American standard of living. Uh, it proposes an investment in the development of vertical takeoff and landing vehicles and the creation of hives industry sparked by cutting off imports from China and population surge sparked by baby bonuses. So it's essentially they're having this plan, and you can go on and just Google search Trump freedom cities, and you'll find some articles about this. Essentially, it's these freedom cities that are based around a single industry, which can help have people live in them. The only way in and out is through vertical takeoff and landing vehicles. You mean like a helicopter? You mean
Mhm.
there's no roads to get in and
Flying
out? That
cars,
seems,
whatever.
yeah. So you don't have a normal travel in and out of them. He's wanting to put these in rural areas because you just can't revive the cities anymore. It sounds to me like it doesn't sound very freedom to me. It sounds more like a prison camp. But yeah, just Google search Trump and freedom cities. He was talking about them back in 2023. I saw a Politico article about it. November of 2023, he talked about mass firings in freedom cities. CNN, Trump proposes building 10 freedom cities with flying cars. To be create a new American future in a country that has lost its boldness. Yeah, so there's all these freedom cities roughly the size of Washington, D.C. on undeveloped federal land. Well, hang on a second. There's a bunch of federal land in southeast Missouri that would fit all these conditions. I don't have any proof that says it would be there, but it's definitely, these are campaign promises he talked about. Yeah, and just encourage people to move there, have kids, live and work and breathe all inside of our little freedom cities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and take the the maglev train to work every day because you can't own a car. That's, I don't know. I mean, the future used to be so bright when we were kids. We all have flying cars. We only work 20 hours a week. All the stuff they promised us, but it's so much different than that when you start getting involved in state politics and start reading legislation. And you start to get, the feeling that, oh my gosh, maybe I should move to another state. Folks, the kind of information that Isaac provides is because he's looking at the state he lives in, the General Assembly's pre-filed and filed bills. Have you been looking at your state to see if your state is doing something like this? Are there bills concerning natural resources in your state? Nevada has been basically pillaged already. I think all their stuff has gone through. Because of Isaac and a few others, we've been able to shut these bills down in Missouri. Doesn't make us the most popular, people out there, but gosh darn it, it's our state too. And we know where this goes. So, and that's another thing too, Isaac, is connecting all the dots. And I made a supposition statement, and I shouldn't have, which is, basically, I'm going to have some folks look into John Deal's PACs and where he's putting money, because I'll bet you it's bill sponsors. And
I bet you're right.
in the HRCC, to get rid of people that won't play the game, that are being difficult, basically, or people who stand up and point this stuff out in the legislature. Last year, in 2024, Bill Eigel single-handedly shut down, 17 or 27 bills, maybe. 27 bills. Most of them were exactly like the ones Isaac was showing us tonight. So we have to have heroes here in our General Assembly that have the courage to stand up and shut these bills down. So this is important stuff to us. And by the way, shutting bills down that are going to enslave the population is probably more important than getting new stuff passed. In fact, it is more important. And so that's why Isaac's work is so valued. And I even put it in my newsletter that there are people up in Jeff City that request meetings with Isaac to talk to him about his research and what he's finding out about these bills. So, and you should, if you're in another state, and by the way, if you're in Missouri, join us in the initiative. We'll be up in the Capitol on Wednesday, Knock and Shock. I'll be there. I'm not 100% sure Isaac will be there for this particular one.
I should be there. That's the goal.
Okay, gotcha. So join us, basically, as we start talking to legislators, because we're going to start talking to legislators about these bills too. We're going to have a list of bills that literally need to be shut down. That, not only that, a list of bills that need to be encouraged, that we need to get through the process as well. But here's the way they like to play the game in the Missouri General Assembly. If you don't let us have our corporatist bills, you can't have your freedom bills, your bills for the people, your constitutional bills. You can't have those unless, and in fact, it was, and maybe I shouldn't be saying this. I'm not going to give names so I can say it. At the end of, nearly the end of session 2024, there was negotiations between someone in the Senate and someone in the House to try and get silver and gold across the finish line. And the person in the House literally gave a list of 15 corporatist bills that had to get through the Senate before the House would pass the silver and gold bill. That's the ratio we look at here in Missouri with some of these jokers. They want 15 bad bills for one good bill. And so, and I won't say any names right now because I don't know if the numbers are exactly right, but I think they are. I think it was 14 or 15 bills. I actually got to see the list, but I wasn't allowed to take a picture of it. So at any rate, that's the kind of nonsense we deal with. And that's why we need, I don't know how else to put it. We need courage in our General Assembly. We need people with integrity to stand up and say no more to this nonsense. And it's year after year after year they keep filing the same bills. Essentially, they do change them up a little bit, but it's the same beneficiaries as Isaac showed at the beginning of his presentation. The same beneficiary corporations over and over and over again. And I think it's really important that people in other states look carefully at the legislation that's filed in their state. Find out if you're about to become, basically a slave in the state that you live in, based on resources, I don't know what you want to call it. I mean, obtaining resources, and then the ecological disasters that can happen at the same time. I find it fascinating that Isaac has talked about the thorium reactors, and basically they're dangling it in front of the world like carrots, saying you have to accept communism if you want this technology, because you're going to get free energy out of it, but you have to get control of your people. And that's what we need in return if you want this tech. So, and it looks like Bill Gates, has invested more than $1 billion in this already, probably a lot more. So Bill Gates may be controlling the technology for these thorium salt nuclear reactors, the safest nuclear reactors ever developed. So, yeah, it's a strange place to be.
Yeah, Pat, can I say one more thing?
Absolutely.
If I'm I've tried to find them here and I can't do it right now, and I should have made note of them, but I didn't. If people want to start looking for bills about electrical power plants and uh, infrastructure needs for those, there's some pretty interesting bills. And I can't find them right now. There was one that would allow electric companies to bill the customers for the infrastructure in advance to purchase an asset for the corporation. So the corporation could then bill the customer that purchased the asset for them for the use of the product that that asset produces. So, but it's all done in advance. So essentially, these big power companies want the not just government handouts, they want to have all of their assets that profit their earnings to be covered by the customer to purchase them without any benefit to that asset that they purchased in advance.
Wow.
Uh, so start looking at some of these things about electric transmission facilities. There's some about where was it, eminent domain of land. So start looking at anything that deals with electrical production, transmission, utilities companies. And I'm sure you're going to find a whole bunch more that are going to fall straight in line with this.
Yep.
So if anybody wants homework, there's your assignment.
Yep. And I've got work to do too, because I've got to make a phone call or two, and I've got to figure out this PAC situation with John Deal. If the PAC money is flowing from John Deal to these sponsors of these bills, unfortunately, you pretty much have a pretty cut and dry case there. You really can't question it anymore. You can't say coincidence anymore. There are bad people, basically controlling the state, the governor, the General Assembly, because they're billionaires and they're partnered with the World Economic Forum, like John Deal. John Deal, the same guy that called Dean Plocker while he was being interviewed by Scott Fawn about one of his many scandals, if you guys remember that. Call from John Deal. Oh, man. Yeah, I can't believe that happened. I mean, that was a God thing right there, is what that was.
Oh boy.
Yeah, and I don't want to go back into it and tell the whole story on that, but most of you probably remember it. But thank you so much for your presentation tonight. In fact, we'll get all these bill numbers. Go ahead.
Yeah. One other thing, I just dropped a link to information about these thorium salt reactors done by Copenhagen Atomics in the YouTube chat. So if
Okay.
anybody wants to go look and actually study what this technology is for themselves, this was a presentation I thought was very helpful in understanding it.
Okay, gotcha. And thank you again. I mean, this is really, really important, gang, and it's nationwide. I know we're talking, and here's one more thing I'm going to point out, and I think I've pointed it out many times on Twitter. Missouri looks really bad right now. We have scandals. We have, all this crap legislation they're trying to put through. They're trying to enslave the people here. They're trying to, put up sweetheart corporate deals for John Deal and others, not just John Deal, but others as well. And also make sure that the profits stay with John Deal. But if there is a major disaster, a catastrophic, problem where there's contamination, that falls on the taxpayers. John Deal, by reading this legislation, John Deal wouldn't have to pay for that out of his profits. That kind of nonsense is enough to shut the bill down. I mean, it's pretty interesting that they would even try this again in this.
And that was a Freedom Caucus guy too, wasn't it? Wasn't Nick? That was Nick Schroers, right?
Nick
If I'm not
Schroer?
mistaken.
Yeah, he was
Yeah.
Freedom Caucus. Yeah.
Yeah. So watch the Freedom Caucus too.
Yep. So, once again, I can't understate this. Other states are going through this too. Nevada is done. All the bills went through. No one paid attention. They're mining in Nevada. Here, we haven't gotten quite there yet, but they're close. This is what Isaac is shutting down by exposing this. So Nevada it can start mining, but they don't have the water to do it yet. A lot of us thought that because they were trying to transport water out of the state of Missouri in 2023 and 2024, those bills didn't go through, though. They were shut down. but they were going up to Nebraska. You know, if hang on, one of the bills had a water pipeline to Nebraska. I can't remember where the other pipeline went, but I think they were trying to get the water to Nevada for mining. You know, we can't prove that, but it makes sense if they're going north with that water for some reason.
I will say, I would think that the closest water supply they could get to, at least the Nevada one, would be to try to pull it out of some of the the former glaciers in Washington and Oregon. They have a natural southward flow, but good luck getting through those general assemblies because, well, I don't know. That's a weird one.
Well, there's another thing as well, especially on water pipelines. And if anybody out there, this is rumor that I heard. And if anybody out there has information, please send it to me or let Pat know and he can send it to me.
Mm-hmm.
I heard a rumor that through a friend who has someone who went to a FEMA training up in St. Louis, that FEMA is planning a water pipeline through Missouri focused around the Mississippi River and pumping it out west because of some disaster that might happen with an earthquake. Like, why would FEMA need to build a pipeline for emergency management?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm trying to find information on that, but it was mentioned in a FEMA training that that's what's going on, but that's not going to necessarily pass through state legislator. That'd be unless it went through something with FEMA. So I don't know. That's rumor. If anybody has any information they could send me on that rumor, please do.
Yeah. Basically, there's someone here, Lion Up Louisiana, is talking about what Missouri is experiencing is no different than the Louisiana legislature. So Lion Up is actually up to date on what's going on in Louisiana, and hopefully there's a contingent of folks fighting those bills in Louisiana. This is really important, gang. You know, everyone is focused on the federal government all the time because that's what we've been trained to do since we were children. Don't pay attention to your state. Pay attention to all the intrigue and drama of the federal government. Look at the shows they put on between Trump and Biden and Harris and, you know, and Elon Musk and, you know, whatever else you want to throw in there. That is really entertaining television. It's hard to pull away from that to actually start paying attention to your state. This is the kind of crap they're trying to do in states right now. If you're not paying attention, there is no reason to worry about the federal government anymore because the federal government is nothing compared to your state government where it comes to your rights. This is the key element here that they forgot to teach in civics, is that basically the federal government was created by the states and it can be uncreated by the states. But if you got 50 corrupt states, you know, supporting a corrupt federal government, we're all in trouble. If you have 25 freedom states and 25 corrupt states, they can't have a very corrupt federal government. It's really simple. Keep your backyards clean in your state, gang, and that way you can help prevent the corruption at the federal level. So, I mean, it's my standard soapbox speech anyway, but Misty Atkinson is talking about 3 bills, HB 50, HB 376, HB 92. She's also starting to look through Senate bills. Thank you very much, Misty. Any help you can provide. By the way, reading through legislation is not as easy as it seems sometimes, but sometimes the bills are nice and short, but sometimes they're huge, and it can be very time-consuming and confusing to read them.
Yep.
So, but at any rate, if anyone has any questions for Isaac and his presentation, please put them into any of the chats that you're watching in. I'm monitoring all of them.
Hey, Patrick.
Yes.
One thing that Isaac said was there was no direct line from Kansas City to Shreveport. I-49 goes south of Kansas City down into northwest Arkansas, and then it starts again in southwest Arkansas and goes into Shreveport. They are building a direct line.
Yep. That's what
Now,
he's Go ahead.
That would be between Fort Smith and Texarkana.
Yeah, but it goes down to Shreveport.
Yeah.
I used to drive truck. Now I stopped driving truck in 2018. The only part they did not have done was between about Fort Smith and just north of Texarkana.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Interesting. Okay. Well, and that's another thing. I remember when Isaac, it started this presentation, and it was talking about 1991. That's when the NAFTA Accords were actually, they weren't finalized, but they were in the process of finalizing them in 91. They were finalized, if I remember correctly, in 92. George Bush started them, and Clinton finished them, and that's exactly what happened with NAFTA, if I remember correctly. But there was supposed to be a NAFTA superhighway that would connect Canada to Mexico, and I-35 was what they were going to use at the time. That was
Do you
the
want to know
plan.
something interesting about that NAFTA superhighway?
Sure.
If you pull up a map of that proposed NAFTA superhighway and then look at a map of the Canada Pacific Kansas City rail system, they overlay exactly.
Yep. I bet you they do. I'll bet you they do.
Exactly.
Yep. So I'm looking for any questions, and so far, Misty is also saying SB 48. So she's only up to the first 100 bills in the Senate. That's another thing. There's over 500 pre-filed bills in the Senate alone. 500 bills. It's getting out of control up there. I mean, we're getting 3,000 bills every single year, and just for a reference for folks, generally we get about 120 bills passed a year, and that includes appropriations. In other words, the budget. And the budget's usually somewhere between 20 and 25 of those bills. So, but there's that many filed every year. What's scary about this kind of stuff is they could easily, if these bills are not identified early, they could easily attach them as a Christmas tree, amendment to a bill at the end of the year with no one being the wiser because they're going too fast. They're going too fast, and there's 2 days left of session. Things are just flying around. If you guys have been in Missouri, the last week of session is where about 95% of all the bills get passed. So it's an interesting time. It's a stressful time too if you're up there. Okay, do you have a question? How many bills per can each one file at a time per legislator? Actually, I don't know that there's actually a limit on that. They probably should limit themselves to about 5 bills. But there is a tradition up here in Missouri. The first bill that they pre-file is their top priority bill for the year. So that way, everyone in leadership knows that is their top priority bill for their constituents. So that much is figured out early. And let's see, no man is safe while the legislator is seated. Yeah, I know. Well, I'll tell you what, since there's no questions for Isaac at this point, does anyone have any questions about knock and shock? And I did send out an email, but like I said, this is really, really important, gang. If you are not getting the emails, please visit the website and click on blog every Saturday, because that's where the emails will be going. And I am not going to fight these big corporations anymore. I remember doing that with Microsoft on Outlook when they shut down the email address for 4 months. And the deal is, gang, this is what happens. And I can't prove that's what happened this time, but this is what happened with Outlook for sure. But the symptoms are the same with Yahoo and AOL. People sign up to be on the email list. I save all those emails. I never delete them. I actually have a special place that I store them. The reason being is because if Microsoft says to me, well, this person's complaining that you're sending out spam, I can produce for Microsoft, here's the email where they signed up to our email list. And so then they can't claim it's spam anymore. They actually signed up for this email list. And when people request off the list, it doesn't happen often, but it does happen. They get removed from the list. But I don't have time to fight it out with AOL and Yahoo. I think actually Yahoo owns AOL now. I just don't have time to fight this stuff anymore, gang. And it's not that I don't have the will. I don't have the time. So basically, those of you with Yahoo email addresses, you may or may not be getting emails from me. The message that I get was it's either stopped or delayed, and with a suspicion of spam. And it does say that someone has reported spam coming from this email address. So that's the kind of stuff that I deal with on the inside and everything. I don't want to complain about it too much because there's a lot of people out there that don't like us. There's a lot of people out there that think that, basically organizations like ours are far too conservative or far too constitutional. We're just not communist enough for them or whatever. And so that's what they do. They sign up to email lists of these conservative organizations and then complain that they're getting spam from that email address. That's how they do things now. And so there's various other, for instance, I found out you can even complain on text. If you get a text message, you can complain that it's spam. So, but it only cuts it off from your phone if you report it as spam, not everybody. One person wrecked it for roughly, this is pretty big. This is over 600 email addresses that are not getting the emails out of over 3,300. So it's a pretty big chunk. So at any rate, just to remind you, I'm not going to be working on fixing that. And I'm sorry, maybe in 8 months I'll have the time, but right now I just don't. So if you have a Yahoo email address and you are not receiving the Saturday emails, please check the website. That's your backup. And our great webmaster, Tom, is with us today, who actually sets those up on the website for us. So now I have that out of the way. Knock and Shock is on Wednesday. It's our first Knock and Shock of the year. I have no clue how many people are coming. In the past, I used to get emails from folks saying, oh, by the way, I'm coming. My name is this. I'm bringing this person with me, and that sort of thing. I have not received any as of yet, but usually it's in the last week, right before Knock and Shock, that I get those emails. However, there's a lot of people not getting emails anymore. So if you're watching this and you're thinking to yourself, gosh darn it, I didn't get Pat's email, please go to mofree.org, click on blog, and the email's there, and it's pertinent to what we're doing in 3-4 days up in Jeff City. So we are supporting the bills that we chose last Saturday, and we're going to start informing legislators that we need to shut down some bills, what they are, in general descriptions, and why we need to shut them down. That's the kind of thing we do up at the Capitol. We're developing relationships with a lot of folks up there, and it's really, really, I would say it's a very educational experience. In fact, we have a lot of people that homeschool that bring their kids up to come up to the Capitol, because when you have kids in school and you bring them up to the Capitol, in this case homeschool kids, but it actually counts as a school credit because they're going to their state capital. They're seeing how the system works. They're looking, they're meeting legislators. They're talking about legislation. So that's a great idea. If you want to bring the whole family, you're welcome to do so. This is a family-friendly event, and it'll be room 220. That's Senator Mike Moon's office. That's where home base is. And if you guys remember home base from last year, it was Senator Eigel's. Well, Senator Eigel isn't there anymore. Mike Moon is the sponsor of the Silver and Gold Bill, what we call the Constitutional Money Act. And but it's also in the House as well, and that's Bill Hardwick. So that's a big deal that we're doing here. Lion Up 3 Louisiana says, fortunately, legislators do respond to pressure in numbers. My limited experience here in Louisiana. We do have legislators that respond to pressure here, but we have ones that absolutely won't. And they are the best funded politicians in the entire state. Those are the ones who don't care about what the constituents. In fact, I can give stories. In fact, I was texting back and forth with Gary Ride a little while ago. How many phone calls we can actually get into an office in a day or 2 days is frankly amazing. Up to 2,000 phone calls in a day or two. And when it came to Dean Plocker in the Missouri House, he just didn't care. He absolutely didn't care if he got 2,000 phone calls in 2 days from people in the state of Missouri wanting a certain bill put on the floor, which he controlled. He didn't care. And in fact, he would get angry. and several others too. I don't want to go into that right now, but several other people that we have done that for got angry as well. Isn't that interesting? When you have all these positive people calling up, asking, their legislator to do something for them, the constituents, and they just don't give a damn. They don't care what you're saying. They don't care what you want because they have their own agenda. And sometimes they get really angry because their agenda includes not getting 2,000 phone calls in a day. And that kind of messes up their operations in their office. Plocker had the staff to take those phone calls. Well, he really didn't. Most of them went to voicemail, but the House Speaker has a lot of staff. They can take a lot of phone calls. So at any rate, but that's coming up Wednesday. We meet at 9 a.m. at the Capitol. Okay, someone just raised their hand. Thomas, go ahead, buddy.
Yeah. If you want to send me a copy of the flyers in PDF, I can put them on the website, and
Yep.
everybody can download and print off their own flyers.
Yep.
That'll save you reams of paper doing it yourself.
I don't mind printing them out, but people can print out if they want to. But I don't have the flyers done. I will have them done tomorrow. I tried to have them done before the newsletter today. There just wasn't enough time.
Okay.
But I will have them done tomorrow.
As soon as you get them done, could you email them to me, and I'll put them right up on the website?
Absolutely. Yep. And I'll put them on
Everybody
Odysee
look
as
for
well.
them on the website.
Yep. You bet. Thank you very much, Tom. Yep.
Okay.
So, but at any rate, starts at 9 a.m. It generally goes until 5. Now, this isn't a thing where people are required to be there 9 to 5. Some people can't do that. In fact, we have several folks that live or work near Jefferson City that can only give us an hour or two sometimes. Or sometimes they can come in at 1 o'clock in the afternoon and then they can stay until 5, but they can't be at 9. That's fine. We love it. We'll take any time that you can give us. No one's getting paid here, by the way. Go ahead, Tom.
Okay, I just wanted to mention one other thing. Is there anybody that lives around the Lebanon, Missouri area that I could hitch a ride with them? Because I can't drive that far. My eyesight is diminishing, and I can't see to drive at night. So,
okay, gotcha.
I just wondering if there's a ride hitch I could string along with.
Well, I'll tell you what, Tom. I drive through Lebanon to get up to the Capitol, but I will be there. I'm leaving my house at literally about, it would be about 5:45 in the morning, and we'd be leaving at 5 p.m. That means, so I would be picking you up at approximately, I would say about 7 o'clock in the morning, and then I would be dropping you off at home around 7 o'clock at night.
Okay, well, that sounds fine with
Okay.
me.
All right.
Anyway, I'll email you my address.
Sure.
I'll go
Yep.
from there.
Yep. Okay, good deal. Yep, we'll get you up there then.
All right, thank you.
You bet. So if you can only come for an hour or two, that's great as well. We'll take anything we can get. Home base is Senator Mike Moon's office. Very important to remember. Mike Moon is in room 220. And the reason why we have home base is lots of different reasons. If you read the email today, those of you with Yahoo probably haven't. So I'll state them real quick. Number one, it's a place for us to put our jackets, because when you're running around the Capitol, the last thing you want to do is have your jacket on because it will get warm. Place to put your lunchbox. If you make your own lunch, if you don't want to buy lunch while you're up there and you want to bring up your own lunch, that's fine. They have refrigerators and stuff like that in Senator's office. Mike Moon is offering up his. And that includes cold drinks and that sort of thing if you want to bring them up. But also if you conceal carry, if you're a CCW permit holder, you're allowed to bring your weapon into the Capitol. But if you're a constitutional carry holder, in other words, you don't have a permit, but you are legally carrying, you are not allowed to carry into the Capitol. So lots of CCW folks bring their weapons into the Capitol. In fact, Capitol is one of the safest places you can possibly be in the state of Missouri. There's a lot of armed people in there. But the deal is that there are some places in the Capitol that you can't carry. And if that's the
Um,
case, then you can go ahead and leave it at home base and actually with the chief of staff for the LA. Go ahead, Caleb.
Yep. I was going to say standard procedure if you are carrying and you have a permit upon entry at the same front door, security check in, you just show them your concealed carry permit, point to where it is. And then obviously they'll just run the metal detector and know it's there, and then you go through. The two places you can't have your concealed carry, regardless of permit or not, is obviously on the house or Senate floor, if you're invited in there, or in the gallery above, or in committee meeting rooms.
That's right. That's absolutely correct. So, and then also, basically in those little coffee nooks, in case they run out of coffee. So I'm teasing. Little inside joke there. So yeah, so that's all there is to it. Parking, check on the website. I have actually on the website, there's a link in the email that I sent out today that'll bring you right to the webpage. It shows you all the parking up in Jefferson City. I park in in a free lot that is downhill from St. Peter's Church. That's where I always park. So, but there are places closer to the Capitol. This is roughly about, I would say, about a quarter of a mile from the Capitol, and it's an uphill walk.
It's about 2 city blocks down
Something
the street. Yeah,
something
about
like that. And well, I mean, I think you walk a total of a quarter mile because you got to walk around
Is
the
it?
building to get to the entrance. But footsteps wise, it's a quarter mile. To walk from the parking lot to get in the front doors at the Capitol.
Depends on which one you park in too. If you get lucky and get the one that's closer up on the hill, it's one thing. If you get the one on the other side of the road and at the opposite corner, then that's a
Yep, it's a little bit more of a jaunt. But my point is, there's tons of free parking. Please look it up if you've not been up there before. Don't be nervous. No one's required to talk to legislators. So it's not like if you go up there, basically that you get shoved in an office and you have to start talking to politicians. That is not the case. We do have group leaders that do most of the talking. So, but I do want to encourage every single person who goes for Knock and Shock to at least announce themselves to their senator and their representative. It's very important that their senator and their representative know that they have a constituent from their district there. So that does matter. So please do speak up when it's your representative and just say, hey, just want to let you know I'm one of your constituents. I live in this town. That's all you really have to say. And it's a lot of fun. It can be a lot of fun if you let it be a lot of fun. And also it kind of depends on the mood in the Capitol and all that kind of fun stuff. But we do have fun while we're doing this as well. It's not just an academic exercise where everyone has to be serious. There's a lot of joking around. There's a lot of camaraderie going on up there. And you run into a lot of old friends. So it is really neat. But if anyone has any questions about Knock and Shock, please email me. patrick@mofree.org. So just email me at that email address, and I'll answer your questions. I'll be monitoring my emails very closely for the next 3 days. So if there's any questions, just let me know. As far as ride shares and hookups and stuff like that, we have never set up a system like that. But I think at some point we probably should, and if we can, maybe set up something on the website where people can say, hey, I'm in this town and I need a ride. And that way, other people can see that. And so, and then, basically we can start helping out people with that. It is expensive in gas to drive from, I'm southwest of Springfield to go all the way to the Capitol. And it's a long drive. It does take gas money. And so, I don't blame folks for, saying, well, I literally can't afford to drive to the Capitol. It does take gas money. You do have to take a day off of work. You're going to have to buy your lunch if you don't bring it. So you try and save money where and when you can. Okay, I think I've covered the main stuff for Knock and Shock. But like I said, there's team leaders. So if you're new at this and you have never done this before, come up anyway and learn how it's done. And see, the folks that have been doing it for many years, how they do it. the techniques that we use, strategies that we use, and all that fun stuff. When we meet at 9 o'clock in the morning in Mike Moon's office, Mike Moon will give us a little pep talk. We'll talk about the bill a little bit. We'll talk about strategies. We'll talk about, the possible issues with getting the bill through certain people. And so that kind of gives us an extra mission. Like, for instance, if we know what committee that bill is going into for the Senate, when we're there on Wednesday, we have an extra mission. We have to go and talk to everyone on that committee specifically. We have to talk to them and tell them how excited we are about this bill. We have to answer questions about the bill. So that's what we do. Let's see. My guess is Hewkin 120th will be hiding. Hewkin, Hewkin. He was hiding on Wednesday.
That's John Hewkin. That's actually my rep.
Oh, gotcha.
Interesting little bit. I've heard rumor from people that he was actually meeting with John Deal up at the Capitol back as early as July before the primaries.
Wonderful.
That's rumor. I can't confirm it, but that is, he was like given, you're going to be on this committee. You're going to vote for Jonathan Patterson for speaker. I've heard that. Can't confirm it. That's just rumor, but yeah. He's the guy that had the Missouri Right to Life endorsement. That was also an abortion provider I talked about.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, I remember that.
I don't care for him too much.
I don't even recognize that name. Is he a new legislator?
He's brand new.
That's why I don't recognize
He
the
took
name.
over for Copeland.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so he took Copeland's seat, basically. Well, Copeland termed out, didn't he?
No, he decided not to run, and he handpicked Hewkin.
Okay, he handpicked Hewkin.
He handpicked Hewkin.
Gotcha.
I have a feeling he was told who to handpick.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he was too. Okay.
Nothing quite like a hand-picked replacement for corruption.
Yep. Okay, gang. Well, we're almost at the 2-hour mark. So any questions, like I said, for Knock and Shock, any questions on Isaac's, let's see. Okay, we do have a few questions here. Les, Southwest, is anyone near Eagle Rock or Shell Knob? Oh, Shell Knob is about another hour away from me. It's actually in the opposite direction, or Golden. So if anyone is coming from the Shell Knob area or Eagle Rock area, please email me. And Les, go ahead and email me that as well. And we'll see if we can find, someone that's also going from that area. And it's anyone's guess how many people are going. Sometimes we have 15 people show up. Sometimes we have, 38 people show up. We just never know until, the event actually happens, because we don't have an official sign-up sheet or anything else like that. So it's just, people that just want to take part in this and be a part of it and try to change basically I would say the direction the state of Missouri is going into. Those who have skin in the game, those who are residents of the state of Missouri have skin in this game. As soon as they're informed what's going on, they generally want to get involved some way. And our organization's a very easy one to start getting involved in, to actually get active politically and have general political access to everyone in the state. And so, we're happy to work that with folks. But I don't see any questions. And I didn't check Odysee. Nope, no questions on Odysee. One person watching on Odysee. I want to say thank you very much for that one person watching on Odysee. 7 people currently on Rumble, and I know that number was higher earlier. 76 people total watched on Rumble. Let's take a look at Twitter. 179 people currently watching on Twitter. So shout out to Twitter. Hey there, gang. Thank you for joining us. We always have better numbers on Twitter than we do anywhere else. So 179 people watching us currently, and a total of 1,251 people have chanced upon our video tonight. So thank you very much to everyone on Twitter for joining us, for commenting. In fact, I can see here if there was any questions. I answered pretty much everything that came through on Twitter while Isaac was talking. Yep, no further questions. And also, too, the YouTube videos are posted underneath the Twitter video as well that Isaac had given us. In fact, that's something I'm very, very interested in, that first video you put up, Isaac. I'm going to be listening to that. I didn't even know that happened in Eminence.
Oh yeah, the committee hearing. Yeah, it's well worth a listen to.
Yep. Let's see. Missouri 2, is there a link to the signal? Thanks. Yep, I'll get that to you. That's Gottfried Wilhelm listening live on Twitter. So I'll take care of that for you. And that's it for questions. Okay, gang. I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. And is anyone that's currently in Signal right now have any comments or questions? Anything you guys want to say before we wrap up the show?
Nothing much I can really think of,
Okay.
at least not. Yeah.
Okay. We had Sam on the phone earlier, Sam Britton with Missouri Liberty Radio, and we got disconnected. He didn't call back in, though, but I forgot to mention that he was also with us. But also, too, the 2 hours, that we do for the show is a little bit long for him. But at the same time, it's really, really nice to have Sam with us when he does have the time to join us. And I join his show whenever I can as well. So I tell you what, gang, we'll probably go ahead and wrap it up now. Thank you very much for listening in. Please consider being active in your state politics, no matter what state you're in. If you're in Missouri, join the Missouri Freedom Initiative. There's no membership, there's no dues, there's no nothing. Just join us up at the Capitol when we announce that we're going up there for what we call knock and shock. And then basically start, participating in the process with us. We'd love to have you. And we're very, very grateful for everyone watching tonight, because that was 2 hours of your time. And the fact that you spent it with us so you could learn more about what's going on in the state of Missouri honors us. So thank you very much for that, because there's a lot of other things you could have been doing with your time. And we appreciate that. So from the Missouri Freedom Initiative, from Doug and Maya, from Shane out in Wisconsin, from Isaac, and of course from Thomas, and from Liberty Revolutionary, and from Cindy Stratton, may God bless each and every one of you and all of your families, and also bless us with good health, with wisdom, and with courage, because